257, hold north of Gill VOR on the 350-degree radial. Left turns 8,000.
Crusader 3-2 Charlie, cleared to land runway 29er right, wind 310, what's up? King Air 17 Hotel, cleared to the Evergreen Airport, Victor 15, that is filed. Maintain 7,000, departure control frequency.
Mooney 43 Echo, turn right, heading 240, descend and maintain.
Seneca 9150 Zulu, maintain VFR conditions above 11,000.
Falcon 29er Echo, cleared to land runway 35 right, wind 3405, caution wake turbulence.
During your private pilot training, your flight instructor gave you the opportunity to control the airplane by instrument reference for brief periods of time. As you enter the world of instrument flight, you need to develop the knowledge and skills to fly the airplane on a continuous basis by referring solely to your instruments and gauges. When you enter the IFR environment, it's essential to know how the instruments work and to understand their limitations so you can properly interpret the information they display. To begin, let's review the basic flight instrument systems. You should remember from your private pilot training that the flight instruments are divided into two systems, gyroscopic or pedostatic. The gyro instruments include the attitude indicator, heading indicator, and turn coordinator, while the pedostatic instruments are the airspeed indicator, the altimeter, and the vertical speed indicator. Let's look closely at the gyro instruments. On most small airplanes, the gyros in the attitude indicator and heading indicator are vacuum driven, while the turn coordinator is electrically powered. By having different power sources for the individual gyros, you'll have backup information if one system fails. One of the main reasons a gyroscopic instrument is able to display its information is because of a principle called rigidity in space. Inside the instrument, a rapidly spinning gyro tends to resist the external forces produced as the airplane maneuvers around it. By having the gyro remain in a relatively fixed position, the aircraft's attitude can be measured in relation to the gyro. The turn coordinator also incorporates another principle called precession. Whenever your airplane's attitude changes, the pressures exerted by the external forces tend to make the gyros change their plane of rotation, or precess. The faster the change, the greater the pressures, and therefore the precession. The turn coordinator measures the precession of its gyro and indicates the rate of turn. However, precession is not always beneficial and can cause errors, which we'll discuss later. During VFR flight, you were able to maintain the aircraft's attitude by comparing references on the airplane to the natural horizon. During instrument flight, you no longer have that luxury. Now you must rely on the flight instruments for pitch and bank information. The one instrument which directly shows both pitch and bank is the attitude indicator. However, because of precession, the attitude indicator could give you erroneous indications. For example, if you accelerate rapidly, the instrument may indicate a slight climb. If your reaction is to lower the nose to return the miniature airplane back to level, your actual pitch attitude will be lower than that shown on the instrument. This will place your airplane in a descent unless you take corrective action. The opposite occurs when you decelerate rapidly. Here, the initial indication is that of a slight descent. Now let's review the heading indicator. The spinning gyro in the heading indicator is aligned with the vertical plane, allowing it to sense any changes in the airplane's vertical axis. The heading indicator is very susceptible to gyroscopic precession. As you maneuver the airplane, the external forces acting on the gyro cause the heading to drift very slowly. In this case, it is drifted 5 degrees. For this reason, you need to periodically realign it with the magnetic compass. Because the operation of the attitude and heading indicators relies on vacuum pressure, be sure to include the vacuum indications in your scan. The third gyroscopic instrument is the electrically powered turn coordinator. Although the miniature airplane looks like it is banking, it is only measuring the rate of turn or roll rate. It does not show angle of bank or pitch information. One of the most important uses of the turn coordinator is that it enables you to establish and maintain a standard rate turn, which is the rate you should use for most instrument maneuvers. With the wings of the miniature airplane aligned with the reference mark, you'll turn at a rate of 3 degrees per second. The second part of the turn coordinator is the inclinometer. Just as in VFR flight, the ball helps you maintain coordinated flight. Now let's re-examine the pitot-static instruments and look at their importance during your transition to the IFR environment. The basis for the functioning of the pitot-static instruments is differential air pressure. While the air pressure surrounding the airplane is vented to all 3 through a static port, only the airspeed indicator receives ram air pressure. This instrument measures the difference between the ram air and static air pressure and displays the result as an indicated airspeed. Knowing your relationship to terrain and obstructions would be virtually impossible at various times during your instrument flight without the information provided by the altimeter. As you learned during your private pilot training, the altimeter senses changes in the surrounding air pressure. Your mean sea level altitude is shown when you adjust the instrument to the correct local altimeter setting. If you didn't adjust your altimeter to the changing conditions, your actual height above sea level would be higher or lower than that indicated. Remember that as atmospheric pressure increases, your actual altitude is higher than that indicated. When the pressure decreases, your actual altitude is lower than indicated on the altimeter. To prevent the wrong indication, you should set your altimeter to the local altimeter setting. During instrument flight, air traffic control periodically provides you with the correct altimeter setting. The final pitot-static instrument is the vertical speed indicator. Although it is not required for instrument flight, you'll find that it's extremely useful for helping to control the airplane precisely in instrument weather. The VSI senses how fast the surrounding air pressure decreases or increases as you climb or descend, and displays the change as a rate in feet per minute. When a change in altitude occurs, the VSI immediately registers the trend of movement. It then stabilizes to show the actual rate. As an instrument pilot, you should be aware of the erroneous readings which can occur if the pitot-static system becomes blocked by ice, dirt, or even insects. If the pitot tube becomes blocked, 2 types of errors can occur with the airspeed indicator. If the air inlet is blocked but not the drain hole, the pressure in the line will vent out the opening, causing the indicator to drop to 0. However, if both openings are clogged while the static port remains open, air pressure remains in the line and the airspeed indicator now performs like the altimeter. As the airplane climbs from the altitude where the blockage occurred, the airspeed increases. Conversely, as you descend, the airspeed decreases. To help prevent blockages in the pitot system when operating in possible icing conditions, you should make sure the pitot heat is on if your airplane is so equipped. If the pitot tube remains open but the static system becomes blocked, the airspeed indicator still reacts to changes in airspeed. However, the indications are not correct. If you're operating at a higher altitude than where the system became blocked, then the airspeed reads lower than it should. Below the altitude, the airspeed indication is higher. The greater the altitude change, the greater the error. If the static system becomes blocked while you're changing altitudes, the altimeter freezes in place and the VSI returns to 0. If this occurs, you need to find an alternate source of static pressure. Many aircraft have an alternate static source. On a non-pressurized airplane, it is usually vented to the cabin area. If an alternate source is not available, you could, as a last resort, break the glass on the VSI. With the glass broken, you should consider any VSI readings unreliable. In both cases, the pressure inside the cabin is slightly lower than that surrounding the airplane. Therefore, the altimeter will read higher and the airspeed faster than normal. Because the flight instruments are so critical during IFR conditions, you should take extra care to ensure they are working properly. This includes making sure the static, altimeter, and automatic pressure altitude reporting systems have been inspected within the preceding 24 calendar months. During the pre-flight, visually inspect the static port and pitot tube for obstructions. Once inside the airplane, check that the wings are level in the turn coordinator, that there is fluid in the inclinometer, and that the ball rests in the lowest point. Then when you turn the master switch on, listen to the sound of the electrically driven gyros and make sure there are no abnormal noises. Once the instruments stabilize, continue your inspection by verifying proper alignment of the attitude indicator and turn coordinator. Check that the VSI is indicating 0. If it doesn't, simply apply the error to your in-flight indications. Set the altimeter to the current reported setting and make sure it reads within 75 feet of the airport elevation. Then verify that the airspeed indicator is reading 0. As you begin to taxi, check the heading indicator to verify directional changes during the turn. The turn coordinator should also indicate a turn in the same direction, with the ball shifted away from the turn. Prior to takeoff, make sure you've aligned the heading indicator with the magnetic compass. Then, as you're accelerating for takeoff, quickly glance at the instruments to verify that the gyros are not drifting and that the airspeed indicator is increasing at an appropriate rate. The world of instrument flight is a truly fascinating one. As you gain experience in flying by instruments and become accustomed to the information portrayed on the panel, you'll open up new horizons for your flight.